It was the year 1882, and the world of the Apache people was changing in ways they couldn't control. The Apache had once been feared and respected as fierce warriors, roaming the rugged deserts of the Southwest with a pride and strength that was unrivaled. But now, after years of conflict with the U.S. government and the constant pressure from settlers moving into their lands, the Apache were losing their fight for freedom. Among the Apache, there was a young woman named Kaya. She had grown up in a small Apache village, surrounded by family and tradition. Her parents taught her the ways of the tribe, how to hunt, how to gather food, and how to be strong in the face of hardship. Kaya was a skilled and fearless young woman, admired by her people for her courage and beauty. But the years of fighting had taken their toll. Kaya's village, once filled with laughter and song, was now silent and empty. The Apache warriors were either dead or captured, and the few remaining survivors were struggling to stay alive. Kaya's heart was heavy with the weight of loss. She had seen her family and friends killed, and now she was a prisoner. The night she was captured was something Kaya would never forget. She had been on a routine hunting trip with a few of the other women from the tribe, gathering food for the elders. The sun had begun to set when they heard the sound of footsteps approaching. Before they could react, a group of soldiers surrounded them. Rifles pointed toward the ground. Kaya's heart raced as she realized what was happening. They were being taken as prisoners. In the chaos that followed, Kaya was separated from the others. She struggled against the soldiers, fighting with all her might to escape. But it was no use. The soldiers were too strong, and they had weapons on their side. They bound her hands and led her away from her homeland, away from the only life she had ever known. Kaya was taken far from the desert, across rivers and through forests, to a place she couldn't even name. It was a small military outpost where the soldiers kept prisoners, like her people who had been captured during the conflicts with the Apache. The outpost was a cold, harsh place, and the soldiers showed no mercy. They treated her and the other prisoners as little more than animals, forcing them to work from dawn until dusk without rest or food. The days were long and filled with suffering. Kaya's body, used to the freedom of the desert, was not prepared for the constant labor and the brutal conditions at the outpost. She was given only enough food to survive, but it wasn't enough to keep her strong. Her skin, once tan and healthy from the sun, began to grow pale and sickly from lack of nutrition. Her energy slowly drained away as she toiled, day after day, in the bitter cold. The mental and emotional toll was even worse than the physical pain. Kaya missed her family, her people, and the beautiful land she had once roamed. She thought about her ancestors, those who had fought so hard to protect their way of life. She wondered if they could see her now, a prisoner in a strange land, struggling to survive. As time passed, Kaya's health continued to worsen. The winter months were the hardest. The air was freezing, and the prisoners were forced to sleep on cold, hard floors. They were given barely enough blankets to keep warm, and often they woke in the middle of the night, shivering from the cold. Kaya could feel her body growing weaker by the day. Her legs ached, her head throbbed, and her chest felt heavy with despair. One evening, after a long, exhausting day of work, Kaya felt herself growing weaker than ever. The harsh wind howled outside the walls of the shelter where the prisoners slept, and the cold seemed to seep into her bones. She had nothing left in her to fight with. Her body was too weak, and her spirit was beginning to break. Kaya sat down on the cold floor, her back against the wall, and closed her eyes. She was so tired, tired of the pain, tired of the hunger, tired of the endless struggle to survive. She thought about her family, her village, and all the good things that had been lost. She thought about the desert, about the freedom she had once known, and the life that had been stolen from her. For the first time, Kaya allowed herself to accept what seemed inevitable, that her life was coming to an end. The strength that had kept her going for so long was finally fading. She had fought for so long, but now she felt as if the battle was over. She was ready to let go. With her eyes closed and her breath shallow, Kaya let herself drift into a deep, peaceful sleep. It wasn't the kind of sleep that felt restful, but rather, it was the kind that took her away from all the pain and suffering. She felt her body relax as her mind let go of the struggle. Kaya didn't know if she would wake up again. She didn't know if she would ever feel the warmth of the sun on her face or hear the sound of her people's laughter again. All she knew was that, in that moment, she was ready to close her eyes and let the darkness take over. But what Kaya didn't know was that her story was not yet finished. Death, it seemed, had no claim on her just yet. What she thought was the end was only the beginning of a journey she could never have imagined. As she drifted into what she believed was an eternal sleep, something extraordinary was about to happen. Something that would change everything. Unseen by Kaya, a man had been watching from the shadows. He had been following the prisoners, taking note of their suffering, and had seen Kaya's collapse. He had heard the whispers of death surrounding her and had made a decision that would alter the course of her life forever. With careful hands, the man had reached out to Kaya, lifting her frail body and carrying her to a place far from the prison camp. The man had been a healer of sorts, someone who had spent years studying the ways of the earth and the human body. He was not part of the military, but rather a solitary man who had lived alone for years, away from the conflicts of the world. As the night wore on, the man worked to save Kaya's life. He bathed her, cleaned the wounds on her skin, and gave her the warmth and nourishment she so desperately needed. He had no idea who she was or where she came from. All he knew was that her life was worth saving. Kaya, lost in a deep slumber, did not know this stranger. But the man had given her a second chance, a chance she had long since given up on. And as the cold night turned into the warmth of the morning sun, Kaya's journey was far from over. Kaya slowly began to regain consciousness, her senses returning one by one. At first, everything seemed unfamiliar. Her head felt heavy, and her eyes fluttered open to a soft, golden light. She was no longer surrounded by the cold, harsh winds of the military outpost or the biting frost of the winter night. Instead, she felt warmth, a kind of warmth that she hadn't experienced in what felt like forever. Her body, though still weak, felt different, almost as if it was being cared for. She blinked several times, trying to clear her foggy mind, and looked around. The room she was in was small, but cozy. The walls were made of rough-hewn wood, and the flickering light of a fire danced in the corner of the room. The smell of herbs and something familiar, something soothing filled her nostrils. Kaya shifted slightly, feeling the soft touch of a thick blanket wrapped around her body. She realized, with a wave of confusion, that she was no longer dressed in the worn-out clothes of a prisoner. Instead, she was bare, clean, and wrapped in warmth. For a moment, Kaya wondered if she was still dreaming. Had all that pain, all that suffering, been a nightmare? Was she dead? Her heart raced, and panic began to rise in her chest. She struggled to sit up but felt a sudden wave of dizziness. She couldn't understand where she was or how she had gotten there. Last she remembered, she had closed her eyes, accepting death. And now, she was alive in a place that felt like a dream. As Kaya tried to make sense of everything, she heard the soft sound of footsteps. A man entered the room, and she instinctively tensed. The stranger was tall, with gray-streaked hair, and a beard that matched the rugged look of someone who had lived a solitary life. His face, though weathered, was kind, his eyes gentle. He was carrying a small wooden bowl, filled with something steaming, which he set on the small table beside her. He looked at Kaya with a quiet intensity, his gaze never showing fear, only curiosity and concern. For a moment, Kaya did not know what to say. She was scared, confused, and still trying to piece together how she had ended up here. Her mind was filled with questions, but she didn't know how to ask them. The man, sensing her unease, spoke first. "You're awake," he said softly. His voice was calm, almost as if he were speaking to a child. "You were very sick, but you're getting better." Kaya struggled to find her voice, her throat dry and scratchy. She cleared it carefully before she spoke, her words coming out in a hoarse whisper. Where am I? Who are you?" The man smiled gently, sitting down beside her, but not too close, giving her space. "You're in my home, far from where you were. My name is Samuel. I found you in the snow. You were very weak, barely hanging on. I brought you here to care for you." Kaya's heart skipped a beat. She had no memory of this place, no memory of how she had come here. She wanted to ask more, wanted to know how he had found her, what he had done to save her. But her mind was still cloudy, and the words didn't come easily. "I don't remember," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I don't remember anything." Samuel nodded, his expression softening with understanding. "That's to be expected. You've been through a lot. Your body needed rest, so I gave you the time to heal. But you're safe now, and you don't need to worry. I'm here to help." Kaya nodded slowly. But inside, she was still confused. Who was this man? What did he want with her? Why had he helped her when there was no reason to? She had been a prisoner, a captive, a stranger to him. Yet, here she was, alive and cared for, in a place that seemed too peaceful to be real. As the days passed, Kaya found herself becoming more aware of her surroundings. Samuel's home was small, but inviting. It was built with wood, as most of the houses were in this area, but it was different from anything she had ever seen. The walls were decorated with various herbs, dried plants, and tools. There was a small fire burning in the corner, and the air smelled of something sweet, perhaps from the herbs that Samuel used for his healing. The simple comforts of this home were in stark contrast to the cold, lonely place she had been before. Despite the calmness of the environment, Kaya could not shake the feeling that she didn't belong here. She was so used to the harshness of her life, to the struggles of survival, that peace felt strange to her. It took time for her to truly understand what had happened to her. Samuel had not just saved her life, he had given her a chance at something new. He had given her the gift of recovery, and she had no idea why. One morning, as Kaya sat by the fire, Samuel brought her a bowl of soup. He sat beside her, as he had done many times before, and they shared a quiet meal together. Kaya had never been one to speak much. Silence was often the best companion in her world, but she felt a strange sense of peace with Samuel. He didn't ask questions about her past. He didn't push her to speak. Instead, he simply listened to her when she did talk, and gave her the space she needed when she didn't. As the days turned into weeks, Kaya's strength began to return. Her body started to regain its vitality, and with it came a clearer mind. She slowly began to ask questions about Samuel, about the life he had lived. He told her that he had once been a soldier, many years ago, before he left the army and settled in this secluded area to live a life of peace. He didn't want to be part of the war anymore. He had seen too much death, too much violence. "I couldn't take it anymore," Samuel admitted one evening as they sat together by the fire. "The fighting, the killing, it was not who I wanted to be. I left it all behind." Kaya listened carefully. She had known war all her life, but she had never met someone who had chosen to leave it. She could not imagine what it would be like to walk away from the only life she had ever known. "But why help me?" Kaya asked softly, looking at him with a mixture of gratitude and confusion. Samuel looked at her, his expression gentle. "I didn't know who you were. I just knew you were in pain, and you needed help. I've learned over the years that sometimes it's not about who a person is, but about doing what's right. And you, Kaya, needed someone to care." Kaya's heart swelled with emotions she had long since forgotten. She didn't know how to respond. She had been through so much. And now, she was here in a place that felt safe. A place where she was cared for. As the days went by, Kaya's thoughts began to change. She had come from a life of struggle, a life of constant fighting and survival. But now, she was learning something different. She was learning what it meant to heal, to rest, and to trust again. Samuel had shown her that there was more to life than the constant struggle for survival. Kaya had closed her eyes once, ready to surrender to death. But when she woke up, she found herself in a new life, one that she never could have imagined. She had been given a second chance. And though the path ahead was still uncertain, Kaya knew one thing for sure. She was no longer alone.